let's go on to episode 4 of season 4 of Fargo, which is called The Pretend War, which starts off in probably one of the most unexpected ways possible, uh, where it's basically, and I started to wonder, like if Ethelrita hadn't been there, I would have almost wondered if I was watching the right thing or not. Which I should know is something that's not a completely uncommon feeling to have at the start of an episode of this show, and seasons back also. And I don't know if we're going like supernatural or what this is. This dude that's lurking around that looks like a really scary version of a Dick Tracy character or something. But like the whole thing, just the way it's shot and it builds up to her seeing him, just feels like a horror movie, and a really effective horror movie at that. And as far as the inclusion of like if we go in the direction of the supernatural for one reason or another, it wouldn't necessarily be too weird if we look back on other things, like when there was like aliens in season 2, and there was the whole Ray Wise character in season 3 kind of felt like otherworldly and whatever that was. So this really could be anything, despite the fact that we've been so grounded up to this point. But we'll see. I mean, immediately my first thought was it's just maybe something metaphorical or something. But like I was saying, since we've actually seen stuff like this before, maybe it's not. I don't know. But that then takes us into Loy's retaliation, and we get this really cinematic scene that it's you can tell the fire is CGI and everything, but there's still something that feels really like epic and cinematic about the whole fire roadblock and the way that it seems to get like bigger and bigger as this scene goes on until the title was revealed, especially with the branding of Calamita, which is just this moment that feels like this whole turning point of we're getting closer and closer to the two sides just colliding in the worst way. Just like a little nudge at a time. And then the title of the episode appears to refer to this conversation that Dr. Senator has with the consigliere of the Vadas, which is the term I was desperately looking for in my head in the last video when I just said Tom Hagen, because I came up, but yeah, it's the Tom Hagen role, that's what it is. And the whole idea of, we were talking about how when the two of them last spoke, it felt like they both kind of knew what was going on, but it was kind of an unspoken thing, and now the whole conversation actually goes into the, like, it starts off with them talking about how pretending is like the American way, and then it's like, are they having a pretend piece and stuff like that, and it's like they're basically now making that unspoken portion spoken, but still kind of cryptic, but it is there, and we know that there's an understanding between the two, for sure now. I didn't want to, because the actors are so good, especially Glenn Thorne, who's playing Dr. Senator, but it's like, I didn't want to criticize these scenes, but they do feel a tad redundant. I don't know if it was just, if maybe they were slightly shorter, maybe they wouldn't feel that way, but they're still great regardless because of the performances, and most of the dialogue comes through and really kind of sets the tone of where we are in the moment and likely where we're headed. But we do have another sort of development, I guess, going on in regards to two characters interacting with each other, and that would be the follow-up scene to the handjob scene in the previous episode, where Josto and Jesse Buckley's character now their intimacy has graduated from just a hand job to whatever this is. At the same time, it's like, if for some fucked up reason somebody were to have asked me, what do you think it looks like when Jesse Buckley's character has sex, that probably would have been pretty close to my guess of how she does it, I guess you could say. And we get this interesting dialogue between them where we kind of get, I don't want to be naive enough to think that any kind of dialogue is going to give us a peek inside her head, because there's got to be so much shit in there that makes this character the way she is, where we watch this sex scene, and then we have the moment where she scolds him for saying the phrase "breaking balls." And it's stuff like that, though, that we almost kind of, it's the weird nature that we kind of come to expect out of the character. But even though we expect weirdness out of her, the character still feels unpredictable in a way, where we don't quite know the extent of where the weirdness is gonna go with her. So I still find that character extremely exciting. But as far as Josso goes, we do get, finally, once he's informed of what went down with Lemuel, or what was supposed to go down with Lemuel, we get him confronting Gaetano, which I kind of talked about before, where it's like, I feel like eventually we're going to see Josso's breaking point, and Gaetano is going to be that breaking point, and something drastic is going to happen between the two of them, before Gaetano becomes a huge threat to, like, the cannons or something. Um, but it is interesting to see not only Josto taking control of this, but Schwartzman feels like he's getting more of a control of the character also, which could just be the acting. But it still feels like there's a confidence in Schwartzman also, that goes along with the character on this scene where he finally pulls a gun on Gaetano and kind of, and he seems so intimidated by him at this point. Like, you would still think that there would be something, especially surrounded by guys where some may be on Josto's side and some may be on Gaetano's side. It just seems like there's no threat in the room whatsoever to him, in this moment, which, it'll be interesting to see if the character can hang on to that, or if this power struggle is going to, well, yeah, undoubtedly this power struggle is going to get worse. I mean, that's not even, surely that's not even a question. But, the thing that's really interesting to me also is, I feel like I talk about how Jesse Buckley is the character that's, like, really drawing me in right now. Obviously, the main thing that has drawn me into this whole season, and one of the things that made me really want to seek out, finally watching it, even though I'm getting to it late, is Chris Rock's involvement. And it might be easy to see that, like, maybe that's been a bit underwhelming, but that's only because the character's just so cool about himself, like we were talking about before, and, like, he's cool under pressure and tension. But I feel like that's starting to break a little bit, and more of a viciousness is starting to come out. Because it feels like, especially when you see him, like, with Dr. Senator, it's like, it almost feels like the roles should be reversed, where Dr. Senator is the one in charge, and Loy's the one that's, like, the consigliere of them. But the more kind of vicious that Loy is starting to get now, and more threatening and intimidating, it's like it's slowly peeking out why he's the one that's in the position that he's in. And I feel like this is only going to grow as it goes on, because this is only episode 4. We're still relatively early. We haven't quite reached the halfway point yet. So there's plenty of room for this to build, and if this is where we are with Loy in episode 4, then it's, I can only imagine where we're about to go, which is great. When we get stuff like, when he, like, gets in Rabbi's head about him not actually being a Fada and how they don't respect him and stuff like that. And then just really that whole confrontation where he's, like, taunting him about, like, his past and what he did to his own family and his father and stuff like that. And it's, yeah, and the whole response to that, when Rabbi kind of says, like, hey, look at the color of our skin, we're not family either. Which is also really interesting and kind of combative to the clear connection that he's been having with Satchel, who is Loy's own son. And it's like just the kind of, and it's like to think there's that connection, and then what Loy is confronting him about, is very interesting to see, and kind of this interesting, almost, I guess, a sort of irony, where he's, like, super protective of one of Loy's kids, and then was almost involved in the assassination of another, and the fact that Loy knows very much so about one, but not the other, is, like, their whole interactions. Like, the more interactions, like, Rabbi and Loy have, the more I'll be very interested to see how those go. And this one was certainly enticing. So, that's also to mention that, I think towards the beginning of the episode, when Loy talked about the gun shipment that was seizing was going to, Mort Kellerman, a character that I'm pretty sure is from season 2. So I don't know if we're gonna see that character, or if it's just, like, kind of a reference, but that's, yeah, I knew it sounded familiar, and I had to, like, really think back, because season 2, like, half of season 2 is kind of vague to me. I might have to go back and revisit it. But yes. But as far as more Jessie Buckley goes in regards to how we're kind of unraveling her character a little bit, we do learn we learn about that closet where it is, before we go into that, it is very interesting how there's a lot that's kind of built up, and how this episode is kind of like really quick to get to that stuff that would normally like maybe hang over a few episodes, where we get like we were talking about at the end of the last episode, where it was like there's two different things, there's like two different attacks on the cannons right now, and it's not what it looks like at all. Where like Josto has nothing to do with it, but like we think that's going to kind of be a recurring thing, but like immediately Dr. Center was able to figure out that it wasn't Josto that ordered the hit on the mule, and immediately, like at the scene of the robbery, Loy like pretty much immediately says, "I don't think the fathers did this." And it's like it's just that easy. And then we get the scene later in the same way, where it seems like they're building up something that's going to hang over our heads, but we pretty much just kind of go right into it. Is when Ethelrita starts taking the job of cleaning Jessie Buckley's apartment, and we're kind of shown this closet, and it's just a very passive thing. Like there's not even a camera focus on it. It's like a shot of just the full hallway, and she's like, "What's in here?" And Jessie Buckley just says, "That's nothing." And of course we know the character, so we're like, that closet is definitely something. And I kind of thought we were gonna like come back to that much later, like maybe at least an episode or two later. But no, it's like the turning point for this portion of the story in this episode, where Ethelrita does go in there, and we see that, as we assumed, this is a regular thing for her character, apparently, killing people under the guise of being the nurse that she is. But there was the question of why she took like Donatello's ring. Yeah, apparently she's just your garden variety serial killer that likes to take souvenirs, and apparently this has been going on for quite some time. And it's like she's just one of those many serial killers that just loves to have a room full of their evidence. It's just like the serial killer thing. And I get just immediate anxiety. She left her fucking notebook in there. So I'm like genuinely nervous about where this will be in the next episode. And that's not the only thing that makes me feel that way. Because we have this whole thing where Thurman, Ethelrita's dad, has decided to finally pay back Loy, but it's of course with the money that Zelnare stole, that Swanee puked on. And the fact that the episode ends on the fact that he figures this out. So, like I said, people are really quick to figure stuff out in this episode, and I think that's another big portion of me talking about how I feel like we're gonna see the coolness start to crack in Loy as this goes on. Like it pretty much does in that moment, but right before that, before Thurman even leaves, we get that moment when he's just like staring at him. And it's this thing where has Loy already figured it out? Like, does he know where it's coming from, or is he gonna, even though he has his money, is he gonna kill him anyway? What is this? And it feels like that stare lasts for an eternity, and then he just like kind of raises his eyebrows, and suddenly it's Chris Rock again, instead of Loy. But then it's like everything is calm. But then that ends up being a sort of false relief, because he does figure it out pretty much as soon as Thurman's out the door. So there's a lot to resolve, or maybe not resolve, but there's a lot that will continue to ignite in the next episode, and I was a little concerned about that final scene where it's like Loy realizing what's happened and like freaking out. I feel like probably should have been the end of the episode, but we get just that one more scene of Thurman going home and celebrating, and it's like I do kind of get what they're going for, I think, where it's like we already feel like, oh no, shit's gonna go down because Loy figured it out, but that extra scene kind of throws in there's just sort of an extra layer of doom to it, like seeing the character that's probably in soon-to-be danger feel like he's totally in the clear. Like there's nothing more dooming them being this early into a season of this kind of show, and there's a character that was in trouble that feels like he's not now. There's a lot of time for that to go way downhill in a way that that character does not see coming. So that could, I'm imagining that's why we have that last scene, but it could have ended at either one, I think. Um, but there is another appearance by the horror figure or whoever or whatever he is, when Zelmer's cleaning the money and Swanee's still like trying to get over the sickness, and he just kind of looms. And it's like the way he kind of went towards Swanee. I don't know if it's like if he like signifies approaching death or something. That's the only thing I can. And is that dooming for Swanee in some way or either of them? I don't. I have no idea. But then that I'm not sure why Ethelreda would have been the one to see him if that were the case in the first scene. So I have to, that's just totally confusing. So we should just let that play out probably, and see where that goes. But is there an we have a more Duffy, Timothy Olyphant's character, and his interactions with Jack Houston. Jack Houston's Otis are getting kind of fun. There's the moment when he says the "Is this the minute?" line when Houston's opening his door is very fun. But there was something I wanted to mention about Timothy Olyphant in the last video, and this goes for Dr. Senator also. Was I was letting the credits go, and I may have noticed it before, but I only like really made note of it this time. Because Timothy Olyphant's a very recognizable actor, and he obviously has led a long-standing show himself and has been the major character on a number of really big shows. So he's a big deal, especially in the TV world, and he's playing a pretty big character here. I find it really interesting that he and Glenn Thurman are in the guest starring session when they've been such major characters up to this point. So it's like, I don't know, because there's a lot of like really minor characters that are in the main cast list, and then we get the guest starring cast list much later after the rest of the credits, as the oh by the way these people are here too, and Oliphant's usually credited under Thurman, so that's like the only conclusion I can come to is if they are not like going to stay relevant enough that they're not listed in the main cast if they are doomed. Which would be weird because they're such major characters right now, so I'm kind of a little nervous for both of them. So I guess we'll see what happens with that, but I think that's pretty much what this episode is and how I feel about it. So yeah, a lot of reason to be excited and very nervous about the next episode, so I am looking forward to feeling that way, I guess. Because I am like really hooked on this, as I said in the last one. So until episode 5, I think that's it.